Hello everyone, welcome to day 3 of your yoga challenge for the month of November. I hope you're all feeling sore and loving it. If you're not feeling sore, that means that you are not working hard enough and you need to step it up. Today we're going to be working on downward facing dog. So as we've done the last couple of days, I'm really going to give lots of detail on how you build the pose and make sure that your joints are safe. And we're going to talk a lot about a modification regarding shoulders and external rotation and making sure that you're being safe for your body, because not everyone actually has the mobility to do what they need to do to be in a traditional downward facing dog. So let's start with just some stretching, making sure that we're loose and kind of warm. So coming down to a seated position, you can stay on your knees if you want, you can extend your legs long, whatever you find comfortable. Just lift the arms up and rotate at the shoulders. And then rotate the wrists. And reverse directions. And then point the fingertips up, press the palms out, reach through the heels of the hands so they're pulling away from the shoulders. You should feel a stretch in the bottom sides of the arms. And then bring fingertips together, point them down so you're stretching the forearms. And with an inhale, lift the arms up high. Slide the shoulder blades down the back. So if you feel your shoulders scrunching up, release them down, but keep the sides long so you're lifting up through the crown of the head, through the spine. And then clasp your fingertips, turn the palms up. With an inhale, gently lift the chest. And then exhale, curl down, tucking the chin, lowering the hands. And with your inhale, lift up. And keep moving with your breath. Just with every class, anytime you want to do any kind of physical activity, making sure that you're loosening up your joints and the muscles to protect yourself from any injury. With your next inhale, just hold your hands up at the top. Release the hands, grab your left wrist with your right hand, and with an inhale, reach the left hand over. Keep drawing that left shoulder back, turning your heart up. Feel a stretch in the left side. And with an inhale, lift. Switch your hands. Grab the right wrist with your left hand. Reach that right hand over. Draw the shoulder back, turn the heart up. With an inhale, lift up. Exhale, release the hands down behind you, clasp the fingertips, palms pressed together, elbows draw together. Inhale, lifting the chest. Breathing into the top of the chest. Feel a stretch in the front of the shoulders. And with an exhale, release. Lift the arms up to shoulder height and then cross them in front of you, right under left. Bend the elbows, backs of the hands or palms come together. Inhale to lift the elbows up to shoulder height. Exhale, slide the shoulder blades down the back. Breathe into the shoulders and upper back. Draw the right ear down towards the right shoulder, stretching out the left side of the neck. And inhale to lift the head up, open the arms wide. And exhale, cross them out, left under right this time. Inhale to lift the elbows to shoulder height. Exhale, shoulder blades come down the back. Deep breaths here into the upper back. And draw the left ear down towards the left shoulder. And inhale to lift the head up to center. Open the arms wide. Exhale, relax them down. Roll the shoulders out a couple times. And relax the shoulders down. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, turn to the right. Bring the right hand behind you. Left hand to the right knee. Inhale, lift through the crown of the head. Turn your gaze over your right shoulder. Breathe into the belly to find a gentle twist. Making sure we get movement in the spine in every direction. And then turn just your gaze to look over your left shoulder. And then reach your right hand up above you. Lean over to the left. Once again, the shoulder draws back, turning your heart up towards the ceiling, really actively reaching through your right hand and grounding your left hip down so that you're getting a big stretch. Grounding your right hip down, both hips grounded. Getting a big stretch in the right side. And with an inhale, lift up. And turn to center. Reach the arms up high. Exhale to the left this time. Again, inhale, lifting through the crown of the head. Turn your gaze over your left shoulder. Breathe into the belly. Turn your gaze over your right shoulder. And then reach your left arm up above you and over. Ground the left hip down as you reach through the left hand. Shoulder draws back, heart turns up. And with an inhale, lift up. Exhale, release and come back to center. Nicely done. So come onto hands and knees just to do a couple cat-cows. Placing wrists under shoulders and knees under hips. Take an inhale, let the belly drop and lift the gaze. Exhale, tuck the chin and lift the spine. And keep moving with your breath. It's starting to get a little bit deeper into the spine and back. And come to a flat back. You can go ahead and sit back onto your heels. Again, that's just a really abbreviated warm-up. Feel free to pause and move some more things around. Get into the hips, get into your legs, and just to stretch things out a little bit, make sure you're loose and ready. Okay, so for downward facing dog, it's really important that your shoulders are externally rotated. When the shoulders are internally rotated, we're bearing a lot of weight onto them. The joints and ligaments are very vulnerable. Where we have stability and strength is when the shoulders are externally rotated. We want to keep that external rotation of the shoulders, but to come into downward facing dog, we're supposed to have our palms flat on the mat. So that means that we have to have a rotation in the radius and the forearms, right? And that requires a pretty significant range of motion. Not everyone is able to do that. So when we were in plank, and I told you to turn the eyes of your elbows forward, like this, that's bringing your shoulders into an external rotation, making sure that you have lots of strength and stability in that pose. It gets even more difficult when we're lifting up into downward facing dog. We've got even more going on. So if you found that hard to do in plank, that notion of turning the elbows forward. And it could be because of just limited range of motion. So a way that you can test that is bring your left arm, just extend it long in front of you, palm facing up. So in this position, the shoulder is externally rotated in that joint. So we want to keep our shoulder here and rotate our forearms. So grab onto your elbow and just turn the palm of your hand down towards the ground. And stop that rotation when you start to feel a rotation in the shoulders. So you want your shoulders to stay just where they are, no mobility there, keeping the external rotation. Turn the palms until you feel resistance, and you aren't able to turn it further without getting into the shoulder, right? Because then we don't want to see that happening. We're trying to figure out what our range of motion is just in the radius, the elbows. So if you are able to externally rotate the shoulder, hold onto the elbow, and turn the palm so that it is flat towards the ground, so if I put my hand on the ground, it can come flat, then that means that your mobility, your range of motion here, should be fine for going into downward dog and keeping that external rotation and having stability in the shoulder. If, however, you're turning and you have to stop before your palm would be flat against the ground, then that means that there's you don't have quite the range of motion that you need, and you would need to start to internally rotate the shoulder in order to turn the palm down, which means that we're putting all of the joints at risk, wrist, elbow, and shoulder. If we're coming into downward facing dog and we have to internally rotate that shoulder, we don't have the strength and stability that we need to hold that pose. It's a powerful pose. We're putting a lot of weight into it. So I'm going to show the alternative first, which is kind of like a dolphin pose, if you're familiar with that, except because you're going to have your forearms on the ground. So just like we did with plank pose, if you weren't able, if you had sensitivity in the wrist, I had you come down onto your forearms. Except in this case, you're going to be palms facing up on the mat. So in this position, you have, because you see the eyes, the elbows are facing up, your shoulder is externally rotated here. It has to be in this position, right? So you want your elbows under your shoulder, forearms parallel. You can also use a block, which I forgot to bring, so I don't have one, but it helps to have a block that you can place in between your hands so that you can kind of place your hands against the inside of the block. Otherwise, just making sure that elbows are under shoulders, pressing the forearms down into the mat, and then flip the feet, toes facing down, and lift the hips up. You're going to let your head drop between your shoulders. Your feet are hip width apart. And your shoulders stay strong and externally rotated in this position. So, and then I'll go through all the rest of downward facing dog. But I wanted to show that modification to start. So make sure that you test both arms, right? So turn palms facing up, grab onto that elbow joint, shoulder stays where it is, start to rotate the wrist down, see where it stops. If you can't come parallel to the ground, then you don't have the mobility that you need to hold the pose safely. So try doing forearms down, palms facing up when we're working on our downward facing dogs. If you do this little test and you do have the mobility that you need to turn your palms flat onto the ground, then that's great. You can continue doing this. So wherever you are, figure that out. If you're going to have palms down or if you're going to be down on your forearms with palms up. So find that initial position, placing elbows under wrists or hands shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit wider. This does require a lot of mobility in the shoulders, and I know I'm really tight in the shoulders, other people find that as well, so it might help to be just a little bit wider than shoulder width apart with your hands. The other thing that's really important with your hands, just like we did in the previous days with plank and chaturanga, you want to make sure that your fingers are spread wide. That helps to distribute the weight and give a lot of strength in your hands, right? So if your hands are all squeezed together, you just don't have as much power that you can put into them as when the fingers are spread wide. So really spread those fingers wide and think about pressing the fingertips down into the mat, right? So if you're coming up and you're feeling a lifting under your palms, if there's space that somebody could stick their finger under your palm or anything else, then really think about pressing back down. You want the whole of your hand pressing down into the mat. If there's any lifting, then you're putting a lot of weight into the wrists. So really press palms and fingers down into the mat. All right, so once you have that placement, again, external rotation of the shoulders. So turn the eyes and the elbows forward. And flip the feet and lift the hips up. So feet are shoulder width apart. You want your head to relax down towards the ground, so not tension in the neck. Keep checking to make sure that those elbows are externally rotating, shoulders externally rotating. And then as you lift your hips, internally rotate the thighs. So your inner thighs are drawing back behind you. And then your hips are lifting up. So that gives a little bit more openness in the pelvis to lift. And then your heels, maybe for most people, they're not going to come all the way down to the mat. And that is totally okay. It's not important if your heels are on the mat. Just have a grounding energy through your heels so that they're drawing down. So hips are lifting up, heels are drawing down. Your belly is engaged here, so you're pulling your belly in towards your spine. So you have a strong core. And it's hard to do if you're really thinking about externally rotating your shoulders, but if your shoulders are pulling up towards your ears, then slide those shoulder blades down the back. Externally rotate the shoulders. Turn the eyes and elbows forward. Press the hands down into the mat. Core is strong. Now you want your heart to be pulling down towards your knees. So think about, or try bending your knees. Draw your torso down towards your thighs. And then hold your torso here. Slowly straighten the legs. Again, hips are lifting. Thighs are internally rotating and heels are drawing down. Make sure your core is strong. Check in with your shoulders again and with your hands. And then go ahead and come down onto the knees and release. So, this is a pose that we come into a lot in class in between vinyasas or in between other intense poses. I hear a lot of people complain about teachers saying that, oh, downward facing dog is a resting pose. So, catch your breath and take a break. And most people say, hell no, this is not a resting pose. It's really freaky hard. So, it is a difficult pose. It does require a lot of strength. If you've built up a lot of muscle in your shoulders and your arms and your low back, it does become easier. But for most people, most of the time, it's an incredibly difficult pose. So know that it's totally fine if you're in that boat. It's a great place to be. Just keep working on it. Sometimes it feels like a resting pose just because whatever we were in before it was so much more intense. But that just depends on what kind of yoga you are doing and where your strengths are and where your flexibility is and all of that kind of thing. There's lots of different factors. So just know it is a difficult pose, and that's why I am including it in this month of challenge. So the challenge for today is going to be to hold our downward facing dog. So just like we did on day one with plank, where I said just hold it for as long as you can possibly hold it until you're ready to collapse. We're going to do that again. We're going to set a baseline for how long we can hold our downward facing dog. I'm going to set my timer to 1 minute. So do your best to try to reach that 1 minute mark. If you feel like you can keep going at that point, then please keep going. Keep timing yourself. See what your time is so that when we come back to this later on, you can build on that. And hopefully, this will make the pose become a little bit easier. So I'm going to walk through it one more time, setting us up, building into the pose, and then I'm going to hit the timer and start timing us. So, get set on your mats, placing your hands. We're coming onto forearms, making sure elbows are under the shoulders if that's where you are. Making sure hands are at shoulder width or just a little bit more apart, fingers spread wide, and really pressing all of the hands down into the mat. Making sure those shoulders are externally rotated, so turn the eyes and elbows forward. Then flick the feet and lift the hips. Core is strong. Feet are hip width apart. Slide the shoulder blades down the back. Bend the knees and draw the torso onto the thighs, and then slowly straighten those legs, holding the torso where it is. Internally rotate the thighs, really lifting through the hips and grounding through the heels. And now I'm going to hit the timer. Ready now. So really stay active here. Pay attention, keeping those shoulders externally rotated. The core keeps pulling in towards the spine. Keep drawing the heart towards the knees. Legs are strong, so the quads are engaged to extend the knees. Thighs are internally rotating as you lift the hips. Keep the hands pressing down. We're coming on 45 seconds. Stay fully engaged here. Strong quads, strong core. 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and that's 1 minute. If you can hold it, keep holding it. I'm going to keep counting a little bit. I'll let you know every 30 seconds as I talk. So, if you made it for that 1 minute, good job. Go ahead and come into child's pose, letting the knees come wide, arms stretch forward, forehead comes down onto the mat. Take some deep breaths. If you're still in your downward facing dog, we're now at 1 minute and 30 seconds. Keep breathing. Keep pressing hands down. Keep those shoulders externally rotated, belly pulled into the spine. Internally rotate the thighs, strong quads. Keep the knees extended. Heart draws towards the knees. And we're about to come up on 2 minutes if you're still holding. In 3, 2, 1, that's 2 minutes. So wherever you are, if you've come down into child's pose, if you're still holding down dog, keep going. Doing it as long as you can. You're amazing. And whenever you're ready to come down, come into child's pose, mark your time. Take some deep breaths. Allow those muscles to relax. Maybe roll the forehead back and forth on the mat. Loosen up the neck. Lift up the hands up onto the fingertips so you get a bigger stretch in the shoulders. And just take deep breaths. If you're still in it, we're at 3 minutes. You're amazing. Good job. If you're down in child's pose, and taking some deep breaths, you can go ahead and lift up whenever you're ready. Make sure you do some stretches. So if you're still holding your down dog or you want more time in child's pose, you can pause it and then come back to do your stretching. Just roll your shoulders out. And let them relax down. Reach your right arm up and draw it behind the back. You can apply gentle pressure to the right elbow. Keep the shoulder pulling down. Draw the hand down the back. Stretching out those biceps. And switch it out. Bring the left hand behind you. And just gentle pressure on the elbow to help extend that bicep. And release. Come into eagle arms again. So cross the arms in front of you, right under left, bend the elbows, palms together. We'll do a little bit of movement here. So with the inhale, lift the elbows. Make sure the shoulder blades are down the back, and then with the exhale, you can lower the elbows down. Maybe just find that sweet spot where you really need the stretch and hold it there. Deep breaths. And with an inhale, open the arms wide. And exhale, cross them out. This time left under right. Palms together. Shoulder blades slide down. Inhale to lift the elbows. Exhale, lower them down. Find that spot where you really feel the stretch the most. Breathe into it. And with an inhale, open the arms wide. Release them down, roll the shoulders out again. This time maybe roll them forward as well. Both directions. And then relaxing them down. Coming into the side stretch. I love this so much. So come onto hands and knees. Walk the hands off the mat to the right. Inch them forward. Hips stay lifted. Forehead comes down. Breathe into the left side. And inhale, lift up. Come to center. And then walk the hands over to the left. Keep hips lifted. Lower the forehead down. This time breathing into the right side. And inhale, lift up, and come to center. And then relax. And that is your challenge for the day. So make sure that you really take into consideration that mobility that we discussed, keeping your shoulders externally rotated. Really make sure that you're doing what's best for your body. That's what this is all about, is being aware of yourself and what you need and how best to take care of yourself. So, we want to challenge ourselves and not become stagnant, and not to, I think when we become stagnant, we tune out. what our bodies are telling us that they want and need. So really try to tune into that. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Let me know how things are going. I am really proud of all of you. This is some challenging stuff, so good job, and I'll see you tomorrow.